of the Dances of Universal Peace. Mike Felisko has been playing guitar since he was 8 years old. He has played in many classic rock and blues bands, as well as playing for Jemila and other dance leaders for the past 25 years. Jemila and Mike have been married for 40 years. And I understand you have some grandchildren too.
May all beings be well and happy. May all beings be free from strife. May all beings return to love. Peace be with you forevermore. Oh, may all beings be well and happy. May all beings be free from strife. May all beings return to love. Peace be with you forevermore. Oh, may all beings be well and happy. May all beings be free from strife. May all beings return to love. Peace be with you forevermore.
And now for today's presentation, Sufism 101, the wonder of a sublime spiritual tradition.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So when most people think about Sufis, what comes to mind for them are whirling dervishes and Rumi, the best-selling poet in the United States. They're very much related. Rumi was a 13th century scholar. Following in his father's footsteps, he was a refined teacher, a master of Sufi lore, and the head of the university. All of that changed when he met an eccentric, raggedy, wandering dervish named Shams Tabriz. Rumi was lecturing to his students outdoors when Shams came upon them and told Rumi, "The wisdom you look for is not in those books." And as he pointed to the books, they burst into flames. At least that's one of the stories. After that, Shams and Rumi were almost inseparable. Shams even lived in Rumi's home after Rumi arranged for a marriage between Rumi's stepdaughter and Shams. Well, his students and his sons didn't take too well to him carrying on with this wild dervish. And one night, Shams disappeared. It's thought that someone, possibly Rumi's son or his disgruntled, jealous students, may have had something to do with that. Rumi fell into a deep despair. He began turning around the hole in his home. Some say he turned for 36 hours. Out of this love and despair, he developed the practice of turning and connected in a deeper way with the divine. After Rumi's death, his son created the Mevlani Sufi order with a large focus on turning. His son wrote, "Day and night my father danced in ecstasy, spinning on earth like the turning heavens. His laughter echoed through the zenith of the sky, and he was heard by beings of every realm. He showered the musicians with gold and silver. He gave away whatever came into his hand. He was never without a singing heart. He was never at rest. There was a rebellion in the city. No, the whole world sounded with cries of rebellion. How could a great pillar and champion of Islam, hailed as the leader of both worlds, become such a raving madman?" Those who recited the scriptures were now singing with abandon and swaying with the musicians in public and in private. People turned away from dogma and empty rituals and went crazy after love. Mevlani Sheikh Dede was the head of the Mevlevi order until his death in 1985. He said of turning, "If you are quiet and in a state of prayer when you turn, offering everything of yourself to God, then when your body is spinning, there is a completely still point at the center. The heavens respond, and all the invisible kingdoms join in the dance, but the world does not understand. They think we turn in order to go into some sort of trance. It is true that sometimes we do go into that state you call ecstasy, but that is only when we know and experience at the same time. We do not turn for ourselves. We turn around in the way we do so that the light of God may descend upon the earth. As you act as a conduit in the turn, the light comes through the right hand and the left hand brings it into this world. We turn for God and for the world, and it is the most beautiful thing you can imagine." In the early 1900s, the Mevlevi order spread to different countries, which is a good thing because in 1925, the president of Turkey outlawed Sufi centers in an effort to modernize Turkey. Permission was granted, though, to open Rumi's tomb as a museum. Sufis still met, did practices and turning, all with the threat of imprisonment. Slowly, the Mevlevi celebration of Rumi's passing was reinstated as a tourist attraction, and people flocked to the event. By 1973, the Turkish government allowed presentations in London, Paris, and the USA to mark the 700th anniversary of Rumi. It was while traveling that Sheikh Dede had the vision to bring the Mevlevi order to the United States through his son Jalaluddin Loris. In 1978, Jalaluddin landed in America with instructions to include women in the term. It had only been in the last 200 years that women were not allowed to turn. He settled in the San Francisco area. One of his students actually taught turning at a camp that I went to in Mendocino. It was the 45th annual Sufi camp in 2014. One of my favorite things to do is going to Sufi camps. In 1910, Hazrat Inayat Khan had brought a new form of Sufism to the West, one of inclusivity, of honoring all religions. But he also included women in the hierarchy, the Sufi hierarchy, which was not happening in the Middle East. So by the time Jalaluddin landed in San Francisco, there was a thriving Sufi community. Samuel Lewis, the creator of the Dances of Universal Peace, lived there. He had begun teaching the hippies to raise their consciousness without drugs through Sufi practices and dancing and doing centered walks, astrological walks, and mantras. And so it was right. There are probably as many types of Sufi orders as there are Christian churches. If we were in the Middle East, the Sufis there are considered the mystical side of Islam. It's often believed among Sufis that Sufism has been around always, with the Sufis expanding on whatever great teacher was present, the last being Muhammad. The Sufi order that I belong to is the Sufi Ruhaniyat International. It's a universal order believing and honoring in all religions. It's a branch of the Nayati lineage, the branch that carries the transmission of the dances of universal peace, also known as Sufi dancing. I usually host a 4-day retreat, Sufi retreat, once a year here in Florida, except of course during COVID years. But COVID brought some great blessings. We began to Zoom. My teachers are in Massachusetts, and they've done a Zoom every Tuesday for years now. Wonderful. They've traveled, and I didn't think that the transmission would go through the Zoom, but it does. I feel elevated, even doing Zooms. They have traveled and taught all over the world. So we begin each session with this prayer. Toward the one, the perfection of love, harmony, and beauty, united with all the illuminated souls who form the embodiment of the Master, the message, the spirit of guidance. And then, during our Zoom, we go around the world, and each person who speaks a different language says it in their own language. We often have Spanish, Italian, Czech, Russian, Hebrew, Hawaiian, and Maori, and others. Sadly, our Ukrainian friends who had been with us every week are no longer there. Sufism is all about polishing the heart, living life from a place of love. If the Sufis had a flag, it would say, love, harmony, and beauty. Sufism is an experiential path. We do breathing practices, daily meditation, and wazifas. A wazifa is done by reciting a word or words, usually one of the 99 beautiful names of God in Arabic, 11, 33, or 99 times. For example, Subhana, which is purity. You say that with me? Subhana, Subhana. So I'm going to invite you to say your first wazifa. We'll only do it 11 times. But yeah, we're going to say Subhanallah 11 times. Let's try it out. If it feels comfortable, I invite you to close your eyes, and seeing it means purity, just feel a white pillar of light washing through you, purified. So, Subhanallah, 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 Subhanallah. Mike, if you'll come up. This song, Be Melting Snow, was inspired by this wazifa. The sacred phrase, La ilaha illallah, means there's no reality except for God. And this Rumi poem, Lo, I'm with you always, means that when you look for God, God is the look of your eyes and the thought of looking nearer to you than yourself, or things that have happened to you. There's no need to go outside. Be melting snow, wash yourself of yourself. A white flower grows in the quietness. Let your tongue become that white flower. As the composer repeated Subhanallah as her daily practice, she felt parts of herself being washed away that no longer served her. And then she paired it with this lovely Rumi poem, right?
Subhanallah, Subhanallah, La ilaha illallah, La ilaha illallah. Be melting snow, be melting snow. Wash yourself of yourself. Wash yourself of yourself. Subhanallah, Subhanallah, La ilaha illallah, La ilaha illallah.
Please sing with us.
Be melting snow, be melting snow. Wash yourself of yourself. Wash yourself of yourself. Subhanallah, Subhanallah, La ilaha illallah, La ilaha illallah. Be melting snow, be melting snow. Wash yourself of yourself. Wash yourself of yourself.
Thank you, Cherag. So, if you came to one of my dances that I hold monthly at the Unity Church in Holly Hill, we would do movements for this, and it's just lovely. We become, I feel like a whole vortex of moving energy. I found the dances 30 years ago. I'm sure of this because I was quite pregnant with our daughter. I was taking a class and arrived early, which was kind of a miracle for me back then. She was my third child. And there was a group of about 18 people in a circle and a guitar player singing, and they were singing these lovely songs from all different world traditions, invited me to join in, and I did, and I loved it. For me, the dances alter consciousness and form a conduit for higher vibrations to flow through, similar to the whirling dervishes. I found dances a couple of years later, again at the Dome in Flagler, or north of Flagler. And I talked Mike into going with me because the woman was leading them a cappella. So I said, my husband's the best guitar player in Daytona. I'm gonna bring him. He might be second best. But anyway, so he went, he didn't play, he just participated, but he felt the energy of the dances and he resonated with Diana. So he started playing for her. That was about 25 years ago. And then I started leading them and he was already trained. Although he listened to her better than to me. So Diana and I started going to week-long retreats together. Our first was near Taos at an intentional community that Ram Dass started, was one of the people who was the founders. And I loved being there and I loved being in the energy of these people and I wanted what they had. So in 2001, I asked someone to be my Sufi guide. Since then, I've had, it's an initiation path and everyone has a guide or a check-in person. But, some of my friends said, oh, you're belonging to a cult. Well, no, because they tell you, do whatever you want, look into whatever path. I was encouraged when I was studied to be a Cherag minister. I actually wrote papers on all different world traditions. It was part of my study. And now I've had 8 more initiations. There's 12, so I'm a number 9, and there's 12 in all. I'm a Sufi guide, and I also became a Sufi Cherag in 2012. I remember that year because Mike and I took our 30th wedding anniversary trip out to the Grand Canyon and then to visit people in New Mexico where they have a Sufi center, and that's where I was initiated and we got to be. It's wonderful.
You got modified.
I was modified. So anyway, then I'm also a certified leader of the Dances Universal Peace Center, and it's just been a wonderful path for me. I'm so grateful to have found it. Sufis often use stories to teach, so I'm going to share this one because I just shared it with a friend that was visiting last week and it resonated with her so deeply. There was a wise man sitting on the edge of the town. A traveler came upon him and asked him, what are the people like in this town? I'm thinking of moving here. The wise man said to the traveler, what are the people like where you live? The man said, they're terrible, they cheat and lie, they can't be trusted. And the wise man said to the traveler, well, that's what they're like here too. So a few hours later, another man came upon him and asked, what are the people like in your town? I'm thinking of moving here. And once again, the wise man said, what are the people like where you live? The man replied, they are wonderful. They're helpful, kind, and generous. And the wise man said, that's what they're like here too. So I'd like to close with a Sufi prayer, Khatum. One of my favorite prayers that was through Anaya Khan. O thou who art the perfection of love, harmony, and beauty, Lord of heaven and earth, open our hearts that we may hear your voice that constantly comes from within. Disclose to us thy divine light, which is hidden in our souls, that we may know and understand life better. Most merciful and compassionate God, give us thy great goodness. Teach us thy loving forgiveness. raises above the distinctions and differences which divide, send us the peace of thy divine spirit. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for this enriching morning. We will now extinguish the chalice. And please say in unison, we extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
Why have you come to earth? Do you remember? Why have you taken birth? Why have you come to love?